the privilege and honor of introducing our next speaker, Mr. Michael Asbury. Michael is a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt with over 20 years experience in the industry. He's an operational profit strategist, and he's the founder and managing director of Elevate Outcomes, Elevate Training Alliance, and Vigilant Industrial Solutions. He specializes in improving results with existing resources while reducing pain points that cause frustration, stress, and anxiety. His experience includes management consulting, lean operations coaching, quality and continuous improvement, product process, and machine tool design engineering. At one point, Michael was responsible for quality and continuous improvement for over 20 facilities in the US, and he successfully delivered over 40 projects, resulting in $80 million per year in impact on profit. And he's provided 20 plus classes through 44 colleges and over 50 companies, trained over 2,000 people on Lean Six Sigma and continuous improvement and project management. So, without further ado, please help me welcome Mr. Michael Asbury.
All right, so how many of you like sports? Anybody? I see some hands going up. Have you ever heard somebody say it's fun, it's just fun to play? You know, it's just a game, we're just here for fun, right? Well, is it more fun to win or get your butt kicked by 20 points by halftime? Yeah, so does anybody feel like when you go to work, sometimes you're getting your butt kicked by halftime? Right? I can relate. I mean, sometimes we have those days, right? Sometimes it's longer than a day, okay? So what I want to share with you guys today is something that I think you can apply at work or even in your personal lives. And it's about focusing for the most impact. It's how to get the most out of your organization. And I want you to look at this through the lens of stewardship. Everybody in this room is both a leader and a manager. You hear somebody say, like, well, your leaders need this and managers need that. Well, that's nonsense. There's not an either or, there's both. You have to lead people, including yourself, right? And you have to manage resources, your time, your resources, the talent, anything that you have the authority over or the influence over, okay? So what I want to show you is basically some cheat codes so that you can go from getting down to the last second and always throwing up that Hail Mary versus kind of having a phased improvement methodology where you can consistently get dramatic improvement, okay? So what I want to show you guys how to do is go from managing chaos, and does anybody feel like you're getting pulled in a lot of different directions and there's a lot of noise, a lot of squeaky wheels screaming at you? Yeah, if that's the case, sometimes you can fall into management by knee-jerk reaction. Anybody ever had that? Yeah, at least one time in your life, right? Probably not in your current company, right? Everything's probably perfect there, but what I want you to learn how to do is systematically go through a process I call declusterfication and get those arrows pointing in the right direction, get people rowing the boat in the same direction so that you're moving through your goals and reaching the outcomes that you desire for all of your key stakeholders, which means ownership, customers, employees, and even your suppliers and distributors, okay? So this is a key concept that's going to help you kind of hone in on, if you're a business, what you could do to rapidly double your profit, okay? I know it says top secret, but this is actually part of managerial accounting, which probably some of you know, but it's focused on like this much, and cost accounting is focused on about this much, okay? And when you manage by cost accounting, it's more like managing by looking in the rearview mirror versus making decisions based on where you want to go, okay? So the break-even point is important because you need to figure out how many products or services you would have to deliver and get paid for in order to cover all of your fixed costs, plus all the variable costs for the particular products or services that you deliver. Okay? Does this make sense to everybody so far? Once you know that, and you get past it, that's just breaking even. You got to do a lot of work just to break even. Anybody here ever worked in a company that wasn't breaking even? Yeah, that's not as fun, is it? Then, compared to beating the competition by like 20%, 30%, 50%, right? That's a lot more fun, isn't it? So what I find is a lot of profitable companies kind of get into this comfort zone where they're floating around 3 to 7% net profit. And if they get bigger, guess what? Hire more people, buy more equipment, spend some more CapEx, and guess what? They have more revenue, they have more profit, but they're still in that 3 to 7% net profit range, okay? Eventually, if they get bigger, maybe they can creep up on 10, okay? But that's what I find very commonly. So if you're at that 3 to 7% range and you analyze your sales and you figure out what your totally variable cost is per unit that you produce or per service that you provide versus the totally, so you got your total selling price per unit and you need to know your totally variable cost, meaning if you produce one more service or sell one more unit, how much does it actually cost you? Without allocating all this overhead in every building, every person, and automatically assume you need more labor to do it. Because the people in your organization, they're probably the Michael Jordans, like you guys are in the room, of what you do, right? But they may be the Michael Jordans scoring 30 points a game instead of 60 points a game because there's a lot of things that waste their time, energy, and talent. So for you to go from your baseline at 3 to 7% to doubling your profit, oftentimes that only takes getting 20% more sales of your services or products, okay? And you can do that by removing some of the things that are keeping your Michael Jordans from slam dunking and scoring 3 in people's eyes, okay? Make sense? They should not be wandering around hunting and gathering for the stuff they need to do their jobs, whether that's information, tools, equipment, whatever. And so there's a whole lot of things we can do to help with that. All right? So the next concept is everybody with me so far? All right. How many of you are already familiar with the break-even point? A lot of you, right? But how many of you think about it often? Or think about getting past that and doubling it, right? You don't have to double everything to double profit. Just how do we get that next 20%? Maybe it's 30% in your industry. But the next concept is constraint. So a system is trying to deliver outcomes, as Junior mentioned. And so think of your organization as a system. You've got all these pieces of a puzzle. They're kind of like gears in a machine. They got to work together in order to get you from start to finish on each of your products or services and get them to who's going to pay you for them, right? Well, a constraint is whatever is holding you back. And there are a lot of constraints. But there's always one constraint. It's like, imagine you've got like 20 chains tied to you. There's always one chain that's the shortest one, and that can be considered your bottleneck. So imagine if your salespeople could get out there and sell 10 million more units, right? Well, what if some part of your organization can only handle 6 million more units? What's going to happen? They're going to get their commissions, right? You might even be like, woohoo, right? Let's pump those into production. Well, what's going to happen? They're not going to come out the other end, are they? So your work in process is going to raise. Your inventory levels are going to raise. Your lead times are going to go up. Your on-time delivery is probably going to go down if you keep promising it at the rate that you used to have your lead times, right? And now you have piles of stuff that are partially finished, right? Half-eaten apples, okay? Those are not assets, as you might find them in cost accounting. Partially completed work, who's going to buy it? That's a liability, okay? Has anybody ever gotten burnt by obsolete inventory? Anyone? You can put yourself out of business with that. Because okay, here's another paradigm to break. How many of you think if you raised everybody's productivity, the company's going to be more profitable? You think I'm setting you up, right? Nobody's raising their hand. Well, that's what a lot of people believe, and I want you to think about it in terms of your organization being like a series of processes that have to be completed before you can sell your units or services to your customers. Okay? So let's imagine your job is to get more to flow through this organization. Where would you make your first improvement? Okay, and the diameter of the pipe indicates like how much it can process per week or per unit of time. D, right? Everybody agree with that? Where would you go after D? F. Yep. Then what? B. Wouldn't it be nice to know which of your resources has that capacity? Okay? Sometimes what happens is everybody slows down to D's pace so it's not as obvious. Okay? So your data can sometimes be misleading. Right? Who wants to be told, go home, you're caught up? Or go sweep? Or now that you've got your job done, go do someone else's job, right? So people will figure this out, how you manage them, and they will slow down and hide your bottleneck. Okay? So you need to study your process and understand it with a depth of knowledge to know, like, this is how long it really takes to do this, right? Then you can systematically go from here to here to here, focusing your improvements so that you make a major impact. All right? Has anybody ever heard a bunch of little improvements will add up over time? Well, they will once you get to D, right? If you start improving A, B, or C, what's going to happen? Same thing we talked about before, right? If you start laying people off, who's going to help you with the next improvement? You're like, hey, you just laid off my best friend. I could be next, right? Or you're like, we want to get a good ROI on this improvement, so let's release more orders to A, right? We don't want them standing around. They can handle 30% more, right? So what's going to happen? Is it going to pop out the other end and generate cash? No. Your costs are going to go up. Your lead time's going to go up. All the things we talked about before, right? So keep this in mind when you're deciding which projects to prioritize for improvement, because you probably don't have an infinite amount of time to work on your business and making improvements, right? So work on something that's going to matter in this particular sequence that you guys figured out in about 5 seconds. That's going to give you 10 times the impact of any other sequence, okay? And this kind of sounds like common sense, doesn't it? It's really like uncommon sense, and this came from a book that I recommend everybody read, but people get this, but they don't do this, okay? Make sense? So how do we do it? We find the bottleneck, right? And then we go and spend time really taking the time to understand how it works and talking to the subject matter experts that run it day in and day out and that supervise it, maintain it, IT that helps them, and figure out what are the obstacles hindering them and keeping them from being the Michael Jordans that they could be, okay? So you start to prioritize and address these things based on which of those obstacles have the highest impact, which are the most urgent, which are the most important, and then work backwards from the symptoms to the root causes and then come up with solutions to the root causes, right? If you're not addressing the root causes, you're not solving problems, okay? We'll talk about that more in a second, okay? A lot of people can just be like, well, we're people of action. We just make decisions quick. We had a meeting. We decided to do something. Well, if it didn't address the root cause, it was not a solution, okay? Sorry to break it to you. Just because you have the authority doesn't mean you're always right. Sorry, Mom. Anyways, you do this. It's fun. Your stress level goes down while your performance goes up. It's like, who could have thought, right? If I came to work and I got to do what I know how to do and I just kept dunking it all day long, who would have thought? Less stress and better results, right? So you systematically do it, you figure out the root causes, and then find out which of those solutions you could do is going to be easiest to implement, have the biggest impact, and is the least effort, least time, and the least expensive. Okay? And then prioritize those things, because some of these things are low-hanging fruit. You could figure this out by like maybe next Friday and start implementing some things for free, like don't do this instead, right? That was free. However, policy decision changes can be a little sticky, okay? So think about ease versus impact, urgency versus importance, okay? So there are a lot of things that cause people to be pulled in a lot of different directions. And so part of the declustrification process is realizing what defects and downtimes and delays and distractions are interfering with you being able to focus on delivering the outcomes that you are the Michael Jordan to deliver, okay? So as you start removing these things, you can start moving people in the right direction, rowing the boat in the same direction, and building momentum to go through phase after phase of improvements, okay? It's not a one-time thing, okay? So don't go through one phase of improvements and decide like, well, this is the best we've ever done. Let's just chill until retirement, okay? There's plenty of more things that you can work on to keep making people's jobs easier and getting more done with the resources you've already got, okay? So along those lines, just because you have money doesn't mean you got to spend it, right? It's fun to buy new stuff, right? Anybody here like bought a robot? Anyone? No? Okay. No, nobody's going to confess? Okay. All right. So use creativity before capital. Okay? You can't spend your way out of a problem if you don't understand the root causes. Can somebody please tell Congress? Okay? They didn't get the memo. All right? Throwing people and money at problems does not equate to solving it. We create this whole new department focused on this problem, and their power and their benefits and their prestige comes from managing the symptoms. Do you think they want that thing to go away? Probably not. They'll continue building a bigger kingdom, right? So anyways, even if you don't have any money, throwing people and money does not equate to solving a problem. All right? Many of the solutions to our problems are either free or extremely inexpensive, and that means you can get a very high return on investment and have a very short payback time where that money goes back into savings or your reserves or whatever. Okay? The cool thing about what we're doing here today is each speaker has their expertise. So, and then everybody in the room has your expertise, and we want you guys to talk to each other because you might be the solution to someone else's bottleneck. Okay? And someone else in the room may be the solution to your bottleneck. Vice versa, right? And there are many common sense tools and methods that can be adapted and applied to your processes and products so that you can accomplish more with your existing resources. So if you do this, essentially, you start focusing your improvements where they're going to have the most impact. You can get more done, more revenue, because you've provided more products and services. You've met more needs of the customers that you care about, right? While you're addressing those things, oftentimes your expenses are going to come down because you're not going to be carrying as much inventory. You're going to solve some of the defects, downtimes, and delays. You're going to have less overtime and less turnover. Does anybody here plan on staying at a job for the rest of your life if you're totally frustrated every day? And you know you could be scoring 60 or 70 points a game, but you're stuck at 30, getting a C on your report card when you could be getting 100, you could be getting an A++ because you're putting in 150% effort. You're probably not going to stick there, are you? Your morale's probably like, oh no, I got to go to work today. And when you get in the car, you're like, where would I rather be driving besides going there, right? So you can break that cycle, all right? And you see the gap between the green and the red line, so I should have explained this a little bit more. I kind of jumped ahead. The green line is sales. That's revenue, right? The red line is expensive. You got to keep those separate. You need the green above the red. You can cross it, but not for too long, or you no longer have an organization, okay? The bottom line is profit. You subtract your expenses from your sales. That's what you have left, okay? So if you make improvements at the right place at the right time with the right projects, the right solutions, right? Your profit can be like double or triple or quadruple in a 3 to 6 month period of time, depending on your industry and the complexity of and size of your organization. Okay, if you have a very large organization, you might have to do this with multiple product families. Okay, everybody with me so far? You guys like to win, right? So why not use your time, energy, and talent to have a very successful company that can afford good benefits and has lower turnover and higher loyalty, right? So the benefits of wise improvement prioritization sequence, and before I get into this, first deal with any quality issues, okay? Before you pump up the volume, all right? As Mike mentioned, I was responsible for over 20 facilities around the country. For quality, all right? Anybody here ever been a quality manager? You ever get that call? Right? Well, if it's inside your facility, that's a crisis. If it gets shipped out all over the country, that's a fiasco. Right? Your dirty laundry just got shipped everywhere. It would have been better for you to ship them checks than your bad products. Okay? Make sense? They'll tell 10 people how bad you are, and if you do a great job, they might tell 1 or 2, right? Make sense? So, improve quality before focusing on increasing your flow. I call this decontaminating before you open the floodgates. All right? Does that make sense? You can clean it up in this little puddle before you get it into the ocean, and now you've got a big mess to clean up. All right, so this is going to already start lowering your costs, and it's going to drive customer satisfaction up, then speed up your constraint process. That's going to drive up your sales and profit, and you're going to have more volume per day. That's going to drive down inventory, so costs are going down, cash flow is going up. It's going to drive down your lead times, and your customer satisfaction will go up. Your demand will keep rising. It increases on-time delivery. You'll get a fast payback on your improvement efforts, which increases your improvement budget, right? Sometimes we don't even have an improvement budget, right? So this is going to increase faith and hope in making improvements, and that's going to help with employee and management morale, increasing their satisfaction. You're going to have lower overtime and turnover, which also drives costs down. And overall, you're going to see your throughput or sales going up, your inventory going down, and your expenses going down. And you're going to see your stakeholder satisfaction going up, so your customers, owners, employees, and even your suppliers' satisfaction will go up, because your suppliers are happy because they can even sell you more stuff, right? Okay, so keep this in mind. You might be able to work on the constraint in your company, but you have these things called suppliers, and you might be sending your product out through distribution channels. Everybody's got a weakest link. So look at it in terms of a flow diagram, like that pipe system that we showed you earlier. So maybe phase 1, you can work internally, maybe even phase 2, right? But phase 3, maybe this supplier is going to have to work on their bottleneck, okay? So you see how this works? So if you need to go through multiple phases of this, it may complicate where you focus your improvements, okay? So I've only got a couple of minutes here, so I'm just going to hit the highlights. This is an example of a site that was about to close because they were losing $12,500 per month. They had about 40 people that were about to lose their jobs. And they went through 4 phases of what I just shown you and went from negative $12,500 a month to about $475,000 or $480,000 per month in net profit. So, and they did this in about 2 years. So each of those phases took 3 months, but then because they started producing more, they would have to wait for about 3 months for their supply chain to catch up, okay? So this could have been half the time if they would have looked at things the way we did on that last slide where your supply chain's got to grow with you, okay? Make sense? So these guys, I just talked to the general manager that was running this site. He was the production manager at the time, and he said that this site has been averaging about 20% net profit for the last 12 years, and it was 13 out of 13 facilities, and now it's number 1 out of 31, and it's held that position for 12 years. So just to recap, if you guys want to start applying this, find your break-even point and find your throughput per unit or throughput per service, okay? Find your bottleneck. Figure out what problems at your bottleneck can be solved quick and easy and inexpensively, and then laugh all the way to the bank, okay? No, just kidding. But you will see this happen. And once you go through number 4, guess what? Recalculate because things have changed. All right? Does anybody have any questions?
What questions do we have for Michael? All right. You're first, and we'll come to you. You go, Jeremy.
Awesome. So, first of all, incredible presentation. I would like to ask, from your experience, what do you see tend to be the most common bottlenecks that a lot of companies need to address first, just on average?
Okay, that's a very fair question. I would say the number one thing is the management team, especially the top level. They've got a lot of ideas. They've got a lot of noise coming at them, and they're pulled in so many different directions. So they really lack alignment, and they're distracted by too many things to do step 1 here and figure out the break-even point. And a lot of them don't know what their bottleneck is. So this is not a thing. They're running around chasing cost reductions, and it's kind of like when people do that, and that's their MO, mode of operation. It's like you got this feast on a table, and you think to make this feast better, how do we cut some legs off the table? Okay? So if cost reduction is the name of your game, just send everybody packing, shut off the lights, boom, you won. All right? If you want to make more money, figure out what's holding you back and address it. Okay? Does that make sense?
So for those organizations that have a little bit of this background up front and set everything up for flow all the way from the back end, from the logistics side through the production side, what are some of the recommendations or suggestions you might have on, how do you get your foot in the door with your supplier to help them improve their process to in turn help you and their other customers at the same time?
So you kind of have to have a, let's get real conversation. Like, you like being our supplier, right? And we're growing. Do you want to grow with us? Because if you don't, we're going to have to find somebody that does. Okay? Does that make sense? It's like you're not trying to hurt their feelings, but that's the reality. If they can't keep up with your demand, you have to have a second supplier, maybe a third supplier, and maybe you've got the skill sets that you could go in there and you could help them improve, especially if you've already, fine-tuned your own operations. If they're willing to do that, they need to be thinking of you as a strategic partner rather than this customer that's a hassle, right? Because you can help them make a lot more money and be more successful, so their company's winning too. But if they don't want to play the game, if they're not going to come to practice, if they're not going to bring the equipment, if they can't get you what you need to, you're just going to have to find somebody that can, and you might even end up pulling the cord, right? It's unfortunate, but that's why we couldn't go faster. We could have gone much faster. We could have gone twice as fast if our suppliers were like, it's like, hey, we're about to ramp up. They're like, yeah, whatever. You've been at this level for 10 years. Show me the POs, and then we'll ramp up. And then they start hiring people, buying equipment, got to train them, got to wait for the equipment to arrive, get it installed. And it's like, now, good thing we had another supplier right across the city, right? Too bad you don't get this profit too, but okay. Does that answer your questions? Exactly. Well, I highly recommend you at least have 2 suppliers, and then some people keep a supplier scorecard, and whoever has the best price and performance and quality, lead times, they get a bigger percent of your sales, of what you're purchasing, so they can, if you want more of our business, improve your performance. Good question. Thank you.
All right, last question.
Hey, Michael, so AI comes to mind thinking of this, right? I feel like you're close enough to maybe give some insights to the actual results companies are seeing. Is it worth, using AI to lean out certain processes? And unfortunately, staff, right, it comes with it. We see it all the time.
So with AI, it's going to be making decisions and doing analysis based on data and facts that it's gathered, right? And yes, you can automate some things, and that can reduce jobs. But for AI to be effective, you need to have actual insight, right, Junior? You need to have actual integrity, and you need to have actual intelligence to know whether or not what it's recommending to you is the right thing to do. Otherwise, what you do is you make bad decisions faster, and you create more chaos. So, did I answer your question? Okay. Yeah, I mean, a lot of timing data, especially for like manufacturers and even services, if they're tracking like how long it takes for things to be done, which is all about your flow, right? A lot of times that data is garbage because people will slow down when they know that how they're going to be treated by management. Or, if they go to the bathroom and come back, it's just going to look like it took 5 minutes longer, right? So garbage in, garbage out with AI.